about using AI or creating AI standards and guidelines and principles for your students. Because AI has revolution, revolutionized our way of thinking and way of revolutionized our way of teaching as well too. It is important for us as faculty members, staff, and administration to have some type of guidelines for our students. And in this case, it is important for we as faculty members to have these guidelines set so that our students don't violate anything as academic dishonesty or integrity, but then also utilize it in a way that will help them, but not use it as a cheating mechanism. Technology for colleges and universities is not new. This is something that's been incorporated with calculators, tablets, laptops, in the classrooms. It is important for us to use AI as a tool, and I say that not very loosely, but as a tool to introduce and enhance our students' understanding in the classroom. But it's also important for us as faculty members to have an enhancement ourselves so that our students don't violate, like I said, the academic policy. AI technology in colleges and classrooms today can be used effectively if and only if we know how to use them correctly ourselves. However, we have to have some type of, guidelines, I know, repetition of the word, to say exactly how we're going to look at that. So today I'm going to give you some examples that some universities are using, but it's also important for us to remember that here at Triton College, we do not have an overall academic policy for AI. I think it's based on individual and also by the department. Uh, for example, my department, some people refuse to use it, and some people say, yeah, we kind of. So in that, you want to look at the following. Like I said, we're going to be looking at some four principles in using AI. We'll look at what is called, I call it the spotlight considerations. There's actually three. And with these spotlights, you want to make sure that you and your students understand them. But then I'm going to give you some examples. And then I have question and answer, which I looked at the AI to answer one of the questions. So I thought it was interesting what the AI had to say as well, too. In this, it's a lot of reading. But the four principles, the principles that you want to think of is transparency. We want to make sure that we are telling our students exactly how we're going to utilize AI in the classroom or how they are going to utilize it as well too. So you want to make sure you clearly emphasize that in your syllabi and then also in your conversations with your students as well. You want to make sure your students understand the difference and just using AI as a tool and using it as solely the tool. Let me define what I'm talking about. In my class this semester, I talk to my students and saying how they're going to utilize AI, and there's others here at Triton College that are using it as well too. And in the classroom, I told my students that it could be used as a founding or a foundation to start the critical thinking. I believe that AI can help, especially when students have no idea how to start something. So in my class for mathematics, they're doing a bless you, they're doing a mathematics project. And if I'm saying let's do it on Venn diagrams and looking at the correlation between politics and life itself, some students may not know exactly where to start. And AI can give them a foundation to where to start. But it's important for we to make sure that they understand how to do citation for it as well too. That comes under the understanding. So in my class, I talk to my students and saying how they can cite it within their paper or research or project to make sure that they're not violating it. And I want to make sure that, yeah, for me, it is used as a creative tool. But I know that some of us may not see it that way, but we do have individuals that just don't know how to start something off. You also want to do the reflection of AI, the progress of how AI has come about. We have gone through a technology era that AI has sprint faster than any other technologies that we've had before. And there are companies that are out there coming out with new ones all the time. For example, in the math department, we are using what is called my Alex in McGraw Hill. Alex is an AI software. It's integrated to the students and how they're learning and adapts to them to help them to get more problems and see where they're going, as though like a teacher we will see that as well too, but it goes faster than what we could do, because when you have a classroom of 20 or 25 students, it's a lot to go around to individual students to check it out, whereas the AI can do it much faster. Also, in my math class, we use AI. I used it as a starting point for my students to go in to do a quiz, because it was the beginning of the semester, and I'm like, oh, let me create a quiz based on the document that they had to read, which was about 13 pages. So the AI went in and created some wonderful questions that, truthfully, I probably wouldn't have thought of. But it gave me something to think back and say, okay, let me help my students understand it. And we went over those questions when they came to class to see what they had an understanding of it. So with the reflection, it's also important that you have some type of flow chart to understand, or have your students understand exactly how to use the AI itself. Collaboration. I think it's important for us as faculty members to collaborate with others who may be using it differently. For example, Jim Ellis, who is in the psychology department, is using it totally different than what I use in the math department. However, the collaboration of that will help my students understand that it's not just one professor using it here, it's multiple. But also, it is important for us all to have the same definition of why we use it and when we use it. So in these four, I've researched, and also with four other institutions, they're doing the same thing. And I went to seminars that talk about the same thing. They said when you talk to your peers, to collaborate with your peers to see exactly how they're utilizing the AI in the classroom, if they're utilizing it, or if they're just not using it at all. And I think it's universal that we have our students understand that, because again, like I said, Triton does not have a universal term or definition of AI under academic dishonesty. It is up to us, if we're going to utilize it in the classroom, to have that definition and to be transparent with our students exactly what we are requiring them to use it for. Questions so far? Welcome, everyone. Welcome.
Well, we have
Yes, sir.
access to your slides.
Yes, you can have access to the slides.
Tuan, is there a particular program in math that you find more useful?
Excellent question. I no. Because I don't want anyone to think I'm being biased. I like Alex because of the fact of its integration to what the students are learning, but then it also feeds me a lot of information that I couldn't see in the beginning. And when I say that, for example, remember I'm saying we have a classroom of 20 to 25 people. It's really difficult to monitor to see exactly what their learning progress is, whereas Alex, the AI, can actually feed that information to me. Also, it gives me reports that I can go back and say, okay, this is what my students are not understanding. Because typically in the classroom, we will give an exam or a quiz, some type of assessment. And if half the class is not understanding, again, I'm not picking on anyone whatsoever, but if half the class doesn't understand, some of our colleagues just keep going on to the next subject. Whereas the AI can say, well, this is where your students are having struggle with. Maybe you want to pull them to the side and work with them. I think of that as a beneficial tool rather than using it solely just to create an exam or to create a paper or any starting point. For me as an instructor, that's what I tell my students. I utilize Alex in that. Pearson does have an AI software as well too. It's only embedded in Pearson. So therefore, if a student wants to venture out and get any different additional information, they can't, because it stays within the program itself. The AI is programmed to look at where they're having troubles as well too, and give them recommendations of where they can go back and look at if they need practice on an assignment or a problem or a concept. I think that's beneficial as well, because before, when you were in a classroom with 20 to 25, and think of the four-year institutions that have 20 through 85 students in the classroom, that report can actually help us wonderfully and fast to give us some idea of what's going on and say, okay, I'm gonna set this group off, for example, to work with, and this group is actually doing okay. So I see it that way. Both of them are okay. So I've had both companies come here to Triton to talk about how their AI works in the classroom with the instructors as well too. I've had them to come to Triton to talk about how they can utilize it even more. Pearson has additional workshops and conferences that come up because AI is not going away. But in those workshops and conferences, they do talk about how AI can be utilized more in the teaching and learning experience, not only as the instructor, but as for the student as well too. Because it's important for us as educators to know how to utilize it and how to use it, because our students do, before we did, but some of them are using it inappropriately. And the first thing we'll think of is plagiarism. And some of them are just using it just to get an answer. For example, there's many apps that are out there for math. I love those. They're AI programmed as well too. Look at a problem, give them an answer. But in the classroom, if I'm asking a student to give a step-by-step instruction on how they got the answer, they can't do that because the AI was programmed to give you a snapshot and give you the answer, and that's it. So the student loses out on what's important, the steps. Because in calculus, for example, we don't use multiple choice tests. We want to see all the steps. And not because the fact that multiple choice tests are wrong, is that individuals in those classes are going into programs or going into disciplines where they have to know how to do it. No one wants, and I tell my students this, no one wants to hire a person and you say that your math is okay and you're an engineer. I'm never and ever going in that building. I joke with my students about that because I want them to understand if your math is not solid, that means somewhere down the line that building is going to fall. And you may say, well, it was the architect's problem. Now you're pointing fingers because you did your math and your math wasn't great. You had someone else do it. So therefore, in the end, I do not have a favoritism over any of the programs out there. What I think in this case, it just depends on, well, the student as well too. What I think is best in one class for Alex, because Alex has multiple languages, whereas Pearson does not in its AI. So my students who are coming in from ESL, who are transitioning into the math courses or the college level, and for all of you, I teach more of the college readiness courses, that'll be like classes that start with a 0. Those are students that are getting into the college experience. The AI can help with a lot of that, especially if they're still learning English as their second language. The AI can translate it for them. Pearson has not been updated with that. It's coming down the line. When I went to what is called the Integrated Argument Seminar, it's coming down the line. It's just they're trying to refine it as best they can. All right. So in this, the principles of AI, you want to be transparent with your students and know exactly why they're using the AI and what rules that you have with the AIs that you're going to create for them. You want to develop any strategies and techniques that will or they can use or using AI power tools. Now, I use the phrase power tools because Pearson actually uses it as well too. And it's not just Chat GPT, it's any AI software that we have out there, and there's tons. Have your students be comfortable in this case and accountable for all their actions. We have students who, which I'll use my example, I had a student who used the AI, but he claimed that he did it himself. When I went back and read everything, there was no way the student could have done it because there were certain things within the project that exactly 19 that I found that he couldn't explain because we didn't go over in class, nor did he could, tell me where he got them from. And that was the AI that created that for him. So within the syllabus, my syllabus for AI, it said if you use it, you have to document it. He didn't do so. So therefore, by definition, he plagiarized because he used the AI solely to turn in the project to get a grade. I thought it was cheating. Consider the text and the material that you're teaching. So this is going back like using me as mathematics. In my Math 102 class, for all of you, which is the liberal arts math class, they have to do a project and or a research paper. So I emphasize it a lot that AI could be used as a foundation to start, but nothing to be used solely unless you are giving credit to the AI. And also in my syllabus, it says if you use any AI powered tool, it can only be up to 25% of it. Now, it is all of our decisions to do what we want to. I say 25% because it is still a math class and they're writing a paper or writing a project. I just want them to be more critical in their thinking when I'm looking at it. And I'm thinking that most of the time, especially anytime I put a prompt into AI, it'll give me what could be written and what could be said. So I have an idea of what I don't want my students to do. So that's me being a transparency in the classroom and saying this is what I really want and how you can use it. Consider the organization of your class. Now, I say that because, again, going back to my life and teaching, I have a lot of students who transition from ESL into the math classes. And again, college readiness courses for all of you, that 095, 096, sorry, 096, 055, 085 that we have, those students are coming into and starting. Now, my 100 level, do I still give them the same consideration? Yes. Especially if I'm in a class where they're writing a paper. If they're doing solely just mathematics, then I'm not really worried about it. However, in those classes, like I said, for my Math 102, they do papers. So I'm concerned that I have to put that in there because I don't want a student using only just an AI to create anything without their critical thinking behind it. Then I want also to reflect on the impact of AI-based tools on the individual and society. In my class, I also talk about, because most companies today are looking for individuals to have some understanding of AI. Not a lot, but they have to have some understanding of it. There's actually some universities are teaching courses right now that talk with AI in business. And I'm not teasing my colleagues who teach business whatsoever, but I did that and looked at some universities are actually doing that. There are some universities that are looking at how AI is used in psychology classes as well too, sociology classes, math classes, anthropology classes, all classes. But it is being reported, especially when I heard on the news today, that a lot of companies in this case are looking to see how AI can actually help them. But most of us are scared because, like most people will say, that if they learn the AI, will the AI take over their job and they won't have one? Well, you still have to have somebody run the AI software. But nevertheless, for me and my society for mathematics, it's just to explain that. And there's been lots of papers in this case, for all of you that have written about how AI can be used not only into the K through 12, but at the college level in the mathematics course. But it's also to tell students to be more critical in their thinking, but utilize it as a tool, as a starting point, not the end point. Questions so far? All right.
What did you do with the person who turned in something that obviously was produced by AI?
One, I went to my dean and explained the scenario. The dean said, well, one, is it in your syllabus? Yes, it was in my syllabus. Was it in my syllabus with the AI definition? It was. Second, I went back to verify with the student by finding 19 things that was wrong with the project because it wasn't outlined in the project that was given to the student in the beginning. The third one was the student had to get a permission on the research that they were doing. So for example, if you were in my class and you say, I'm going to do my paper on shoe sizes for males, I approved it. The student did not do that. The AI gave him charts and graphs based off of soda and countries. So it had nothing to do with the project in the beginning if he was doing it on shoe sizes. So when he typed in give a graph on, give a bar graph on this particular subject. And it did. It gave him a bar graph dealing with soda, which was not his project in the beginning.
You didn't really even look at it. You just did it.
And that was number 4. When I confronted the student, in this case, which was online, I had the student meet with me. I didn't tell him that he violated the academic policy yet. I went through the 19 questions with him to see if he can answer it based on his project. He could not answer any of the 19 questions whatsoever because the AI created it, not him.
So did he drop out?
No, I failed him. He violated academic policy because in the syllabus it says if you violate it, A, you can be brought up on academic charges, or B, fail the course. So that's why I consulted with my dean to find out exactly if I'm going in the right direction.
Yeah.
So in that, yes, I have reasons to fail him for the course.
Well, because I've come up with this as well and talked with my department chair. What I do, because I teach online asynchronous as well, so it's pretty obvious when their writing level goes from here to here, to graduate PhD level. It's a cinema appreciation class, so it's pretty easy to AI. And I'm struggling with it now because I think 40 to 80% of what the students are turning in is AI generated. But in previous semesters, what I would do is I would say to the student, hey, I feel like this might be AI generated. Schedule a phone call with me, and if we can have a conversation where I feel like you can exhibit this level of understanding of the material, I will grade your work. Otherwise, I'm giving you a 0. And if this happens again, I will fail you for the course. And you know how many times I've had students take me up on that phone call?
Probably never.
Mhm.
I've never had students in graduate course asynchronous, I've never had them fight it and say, this isn't AI.
Yeah.
They just don't respond.
Yeah.
They take the
Yeah.
0.
You're right. And that student in this case, he actually did. He figured he could validate his point based on the conversation.
Yeah.
So when I went to the dean, I said, how do I approach this? And she gave me a great suggestion. She said, create some questions that's based on his project he should be able to answer. And you're right. Like I said, there was 19 questions I developed based on the project. He couldn't answer them because he didn't write the paper.
Right.
And the fact that the two charts didn't agree, and the email that was his consent, and also his permission to say to me as the instructor, I'm going to research on shoe sizes and collect this amount of data from peers, friends, and family members. Okay, in the project, he had to, if he had a name like Josh, he had to put if they were a family member, friend, or coworker. Yes, he did that. So in that, I picked out 4 of the names to tell me and asked him the relationships. He couldn't answer that. That was one of the questions. He could not answer the relationship. You wrote this, and you can't tell me if Josh is your friend, coworker, or your or classmate. He couldn't answer it. Yes.
You mentioned you did some business projects, okay? And maybe just elaborate a little bit on that because I'm trying to work on it myself. So the project was A, whatever A was, and then what did you ask the student to do that was allowable in the AI in that project?
Fantastic question. It wasn't business related per se. What was, it was statistics. In the project, the students were allowed to interview 20 to 100 individuals on a particular topic that they like. So they get to choose a topic, but I had to approve it. So the student wrote that he was going to interview what shoe sizes people wear. It was approved. I said, okay. And then he came back within the email stating that he was going to interview 50 individuals. Approved. 50 individual shoe size. I said, okay, is it male or female? I said, you need to tell me a gender or I would choose it for you. Based on the email, he selected all males. Fantastic. With the project, he had to create a Venn diagram of how the shoe sizes and what their similarities in this case using intervals. And intervals in this case, it was a shoe size from 6 to 8, then 9 to 11. He had to use intervals. The next within the project itself, he had to tell me exactly if there was a correlation by using a scatter chart. That was the other chart he had to use. The scatter chart was to show me if there's any positive or negative correlations with the shoe sizes based on the number of participants he had. Also within the report, he had to give a mean, a median, and a mode, the basic standard statistics that we use. Because for Math 102, for all of you, it is mathematics that's going to be used in the real world. So it was nothing more than just that. And find a standard deviation of the values that he was given. Within the report, he had to give me, which was a maximum of 5 pages, a minimum of 2 pages. And I really didn't want it more than elaborate because it was 25 people and I had to read a lot of them. So within the project itself, he had to explain the process of how he collected the data, how he created the Venn diagram and the scattered graph, which were the 2 that were required. What was the relationship between the mean, the median, and the mode, and the standard deviation, and how can this relate to a real world situation, which I selected for every student. Every student got the same real world situation. They just had to show me where it was going to be related based on the mathematics. So it wasn't a business project per se. But I was saying I looked at some companies and some companies saying they want students to understand AI, And some companies today actually want AI taught in the classroom. There's actually two, like Microsoft is actually one of them. Google is one of them as well too. They really want to be taught in the classroom. However, it is still up to the instructor and the institution if they want to do that. So the project itself, that was really what it was. It was not to be more than elaborate than that, because for the Math 102, they have to have 3 projects. So that's why it was a maximum of 5 pages, a minimum of 2. And I just made it so they can choose whatever. They just had to get my approval of what they were going to write on.
So the result of the difference deviation from the mean was trying to tell you what? From the sample size. That's what I'm not getting yet.
For the standard deviation, in this case, was to look and see if there was going to be a correlation between the mean and the mode.
Based on the shoe sizes?
Correct.
Of males versus females or all males?
Well, the student only interviewed males, so he was only looking at shoe sizes of all males that he interviewed, and the shoe sizes started at 6 to 11. So he was just telling me if there was any correlation with it.
This student went out and got the shoe sizes from AI instead of the interview.
Correct. Correct. And the AI didn't actually, well, the AI did exactly what it was programmed to do, but he didn't do a scatter graph. The AI didn't do that. He did a bar graph. The AI didn't do a Venn diagram. He did a circle graph. So that was what I'm saying. He didn't do what I was asking him to do. The shoe size was fine. However, he did not do shoe size. He did on candy.
Do what?
Candy.
Oh.
So he typed in the AI prompt to say, give me a paper on how standard deviation, mean, and the mode, the basic descriptive statistics can be used, but he put in, I'm guessing, candy, because nothing had to do with shoe size, because that was the original contract in the email that we had. So the project didn't match up with the email that he said. Thus, the dean said, pick out 19 things. I did. I mean, it was a great project, per se. The graphs were wrong, but he couldn't answer any of the questions. He was strong in his stand and saying, no, I did this myself. He eventually broke down and said, yes, I had the AI do it. Yeah, because I told him after 19 questions, you can't answer one of them.
So there was no part that he actually did it.
No. In fact, I would say it this way. He used vocabulary that's taught in the statistics class that we didn't even talk about in my class. Then he told me, I love this one. He said, but I took stats a while ago. Yeah, but you were taught to use this class, not any other class whatsoever. And he did not have any references as required. He had to have 2 articles to reference anything that he was put in there to say how it's related to the real world, because in that, my class, I want them to know it's others who've done this research. There's others who have done all kinds of projects, but there's others who can validate why they do what they've done. You're just using theirs as a backup to say, yes, this is why it's done this way because X, Y, and Z. And he didn't have any articles to support anything that he said. The article that he did have in there, the AI created it, but it wasn't real because it doesn't exist. He didn't know that either.
So it hallucinated references.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
In that project, what would you have expected him to use today?
Well, actually, what I expected and maybe use from the AI is just how to start the project. A lot of students don't know how to start a writing essay. They don't know how to start. They don't know how to do a beginning of what I was asking. Because in the project, they had to have an introduction, what the project was about, basically what we just talked about. The second paragraph is basic, or the body of the project was to explain all the procedures of how you got to that point. The first day when you interview people, did you go online to interview them? Did you send them an email? Did you send them a text? I needed to know all the steps that we had talked about in the class. When we talked about collecting data, in this case, did you have them sign off on the form, or did you just have your friends say, hey, what's your shoe size, or your family? None of that was actually reported. Then his conclusion in this case, which was very short, and saying that, yes, everything matches up. And I have no idea what that meant.
So the right way to have done, asked AI for outline or steps, sequences how to do this project.
Correct.
That would have given him the guideline on how to do it. Now he has to go out and do the data research.
You're correct. You're absolutely correct. And that's where, like, I talk to my class now, and Jim, who was here, if he was here, he does the same thing in his class. I actually have them, it's outlined in my syllabi that we're going to go into the class. I'm going to show you how to have AI create an outline so that you can get a starting point. The outline does not have to be cited because the outline is just the starting point to say, okay, how do I start researching? Oh, this is the steps to do that. That's what the AI is going to give them. That I really don't mind them doing, but it's because, like the student stated in the end, after all the 19 questions, he stated he did use AI to complete the entire project. The project exceeded the number of pages that I asked, and it had nothing to do with the contract in the beginning.
So the AI could have been used as a rubric.
Correct, correct. But he, in this case, did not use that. So in class, especially if it's an online class, I actually have a video that I use every semester. I create something different for the class, and I talk about have AI create an outline for you to start. Do not use any information from it. However, if you do, please learn how to use APA citation in this case, which I do have for all of you as well too, because that's what I do in my class. They have to cite that AI. Now there are like Grammarly and actually ChatGPT can show you how they can cite for AI within any project or research or any paper that you're doing. It can show you how to do that. However, there's institutions like Purdue who's now have how to do citations for AI as well too. Washington University, there's the American Association of Colleges that do the same thing. There are a lot of institutions that are now saying, hey, let's show students how to do citations so that they don't violate plagiarism or academic honesty.
Yeah, the Purdue outside too.
It is. It's very good. In fact, let's go up. I'm going to go right back to this file again. Go here. Here we go. Use proper citation. So the Purdue, actually, this is exactly what I do in class. I show them that there are sites that how to cite AI within your project and your papers in this case, so that you do not violate academic integrity. So it is, ask the question, will you have a copy of this? Yes, you will have a copy of this presentation for all of you as well too. Here's an example of how to cite ChatGPT and AI as well too. And yes, there's several companies, there's actually several companies that can do that, and also articles to help students to understand how to do it as well too. All right, so if I go back here, so in my class I talk about spotlights and considerations of how to use AI. The first one I call is like the red light. I had students are not permitted to use AI in the classroom, and I say that I do have colleagues who are like that you are not permitted. The reason why is because they may not want to use it on a quiz or an exam. AI in this case doesn't really help with the knowledge that you need to have, and it doesn't inform your students that they may not have an understanding how to actually use it. So that's where the transparency comes from. Most institutions in this case, and especially the leadership, will say, make sure your students understand how to use AI in your classroom or your discipline before you say you're allowed to use it. Because it's like, go to the example for math class. I have colleagues in the beginning who were saying that, oh, we don't let them use a calculator, but it's technology. But then they say that students don't know how to use it properly. So in class, we go over how to use the calculator correctly. Yeah, give or take. Then yellow light, in this case, the student has to get permission from the instructor. In your syllabi, make sure you outline that within, if it's a group assignment, what AI they can be used, and then also tell them that the AI is used as a critical thinking point, not as a ending point to completing the project. And again, like I said, in my class, exactly what we talk about when it comes up, the red light, yellow light, and the green light of how to use AI. Next. The green light is that students are encouraged to use AI, but I have parameters of how they can use it. So in this case, I have clear directions and guidelines on how to use it. That student that I was referring to, which was about 4 summers ago, he did not read because it was online, so I'm assuming they read because it's online, and I know it's the biggest assumption we all think about as instructors that they're reading the material. However, that's why I went to my dean to say, how can I address this, because this is not his writing. For my Math 102 class, for example, they have to do not just a project, but they have to do discussions. So the discussion writing was different from the project, totally different. So like you said, here's the level and here's graduate level. It jumped. That was like, this can't be his writing. Reinforce the importance of transparency and ethical conduct. This is where, for me, I would send out emails to my students, especially for the online, and I remind them 3 times during the semester, especially when it's the project, make sure you're following the ethical guidelines for the course and making sure that AI is used properly and not being used. Establish the guidelines, establish the classroom and online guidelines with feedback with using AI. So in this, when the student used it, that was me giving feedback, like you stated as well too. I gave them feedback and saying, this can't be right. How's this done this way, and where's the connection in this case? So there was a lot of things, like I said, the AI did wonderfully. If it was a project, I would say just use AI, I would have passed them. But it wasn't a project using AI solely. Within the presentation, there's some websites that you can go to that has a lot of information in regards to how we as educators can put it in our classroom and in our discussions for our students. And then also, up here, there you go. The summary of it all, AI literacy, we have to make sure that we're integrating this in our classrooms when we talk about it, especially when you put it in your syllabi as here's the guideline. So think of it like when you put in when we put in our syllabi the academic dishonesty. We have to create that same thing for AI, or you can integrate it. That's why I say Triton really does not have something like that. Some institutions, it's integrated into their academic dishonesty policy, and some institutions have it separate. So whenever our leadership decides that we want to do it, but we have it in our syllabus. Teach responsibility to guide students in navigating AI, because again, some students know how to use it because we have our generation of students who come in using it, but they may not know how to use it correctly, especially when they're typing in prompts to get the answer or a starting point. So you're right, Bill, in the sense that the student could have typed it in and say, give me an outline how to start, but instead of he put in maybe, can you give me a paper on this? And it was incorrect. Teach ethics and effective guidelines in using AI. Again, this goes back to some of the research, especially it was done with K through 12. They're saying that students coming in technology based, but they may not know how to use it correctly. We have those students today in our institution. They use it, but maybe not correctly. And I give the example, I just came from my math class over in the M building, and one of my students, we were talking about doing functions on a graph. The student was looking at the AI and gave her everything, and she's answering. I'm like, well, that's really great. And I'm walking around and I'm looking. She's using the AI to answer my questions. So I was like, oh. So I asked her a question the AI couldn't answer. She couldn't answer it. Foster an environment that encourage innovation while maintaining and promoting academic integrity. Again, that's me in the classroom, and research has shown that if you are going to use AI, promote that it can be used, but just show them how to use it correctly. And then last, I'm going to give you some examples, lead by example, because then I actually put together for my class, every semester I'll do something different, so it's never the same paper. So this class that I'm doing this semester, I'm working on it, but I'm putting it in the AI so I'll know exactly what it'll look like. So in class, when we talk about how to use AI, I'm going to show them a complete paper that AI put together so we can pick out the things that are wrong with it. But that's to give them and saying I'm leading by example, don't use it solely to complete your project. Here are some additional links for all of you that can give you some other responsibilities that you can use on how to use AI. And we do have a workshop that's coming up here at Triton College that talks about generating AI as well too, and using it within the curriculum. It's just here today we're talking about how to actually put it in your syllabus so that you know and your students will have something to go back on. Because as instructors, professors, we are the first line of defense. However, if the student challenges us, they go to the chair. The chair needs to, and correct me if I'm wrong, the chair goes by our syllabi. And if it's not in there, then the chair is like, well, I don't really know how to address this because your instructor didn't put it in there. So now they're on a crossroad. Next person after that, if they don't like the chair's decision, they go to the dean. The dean does exactly the same thing. They look for our syllabi. If it's not in there, then that student is now, or I shouldn't say the student, but the dean is at a crossroad to decide what they want to do. But I could be wrong. Could be wrong. Am I wrong?
No, you're right.
Okay. I was just because you're a chair, so. All right. Go here. So here are some examples for all of you that I went and did some research that some institutions have within their syllabi or what they have at their institutions about the languages. So I thought this would be interesting to see the following, that some institutions in this case are saying that it's important for the language to be in the syllabus because, well, you want students to make sure they understand what you're doing and the transparency of it all. And they go through an outline of what you should have within there, which is really going back to the academic dishonesty policy as well. Then my favorite is this one, coming from JMU libraries in this case, and saying their academic AI and what they universally have their institution put in for all their faculties within their syllabi for AI. And again, it is a statement that if you're not utilizing, but the institution backs you up and saying this is the universal statement that the institution will follow. We do not have that here at Triton College. So like in my department, for the math department, some of my colleagues says no to AI. Some say yes. We have one person who wrote 3 sentences and saying you not to use AI. But you know, I think it's good, but it's just making sure that my students understand how to use it in the guideline. But again, I want to not take up a lot of your time for all of you. So here's some examples. The first one in this case is recommended that students exercise caution when interacting with any AI-based tool or any AI-based any power tools such as ChatGPT, to avoid unintentionally sharing intellectual property, copyright material, and confidential data. I have this in my syllabi to tell students that once you put something in there, it's still a database. It's collecting that data and using it for the next individual who may type something in there. Some institutions, this was Shelley and I, a part of the Northern Illinois Council, and we were talking about this and how they use information within their institution and their syllabi and what they tell their students. One of the professors at another institution said I can use it but not give her credit for it. I said, okay. So in this, she writes, AI, in this case, in this applications have rapidly evolved and impacts various aspects of our lives, from healthcare to finance, and understanding its principles and ethical implications is critical in today's world. She said within her syllabus, she explains this, that AI is great. It is used in different fields. Just be careful how you use it in her course. And in that, I was thinking, like you're saying, multimedia or cinema appreciation. Some English professors don't really like it either because they figured the students are going to utilize it and just write a paper. However, the one professor who was online when we were talking about this, she said she lets them, but in class they have to write everything. So the AI can't write it in class.
Problem with online asynchronous. Can't do it.
You're absolutely correct. You're absolutely correct. So rather than boring you and reading everything for all of you, yeah, this is some examples that I've gotten from individuals. And like I said, my definition or my guideline of how they use it in the classroom is to make sure that they understand that. So in a couple of weeks, which will be close to midterm, when we talk about the midterm project, is the AI presentation on how to use AI. We actually went to the library, how they can utilize tools from the library and to cite it very correctly as well too. I usually will try to ask a colleague in the English department to come in to talk about how they use it for citations, writing across the curriculum. If not, it's usually going to the library and doing my own research and have them how they cite it as well too. I wanted to open it up to questions and answers. So I asked the AI the following. How can students ethically use AI tools like ChatGPT in the classroom? And this is what the AI replied. AI tools like ChatGPT can be valuable for learning, but they should be used ethically and responsibly. Students can use AI to generate ideas, which is the outline, summarize complex topics, or assist with brainstorming. Exactly what I emphasize with my students as well too. But they must ensure that their work remains original. That is the biggest thing I got from it. The AI even says it. You can use me, but it still has to be your work. So I just like, I had to share this one. I was like, let me see what the AI says about using you in the classroom. So then it goes on, when inappropriately AI generated contents, they should properly cite it using their institutional preference citation styles. For me, I use APA in my classes, but MLA does have it on their websites now, and within their new generation book that's coming out, how to cite AI in your papers. Additionally, AI should not be used to complete an assignment, dishonesty, or replace critical thinking. Instead, it should be a supplement in learning, just like a textbook or research database. So I loved it. I'm actually going to paraphrase some of it from the AI that, yeah, use it as a starting point, use it as a, I'm not sure how to start, use it as a brainstorm tool, use it as, or create an outline, but don't solely rely on the AI. Questions, comments? My class. Questions, comments, concerns? The finger.
Are you going to email that out to the officials?
Yes, I am.
Very interesting. I teach writing for advanced ESL students.
Mm-hmm.
On one or two occasions, I said, because obviously, I mean, I don't write that well. That's not the trick of this class. The way I have dealt with this is to talk to them and say, here's the thing. You're in this class specifically because you're attempting to improve your writing skills. How does it help you when you have AI create your paper? It isn't going to do anything for you.
You're absolutely
And
right.
they catch on, so they get that. So I think that probably does stop.
Hmm.
I wouldn't really know how to use it in times like that exactly because it's that they should use it. I don't want them to use it, I don't think. I want them to really try to do their own work.
Well, it is your prerogative to do so. This is where you, as the instructor, professor,
I
the
read
guide.
every word they write. It's
Mhm.
very technical. And then they must revise.
Okay,
Well, there's nothing to revise if they use AI.
you're correct. You're absolutely correct. So that's what I'm saying. You, as the instructor, the guide, and the designer of it, you have the right to say that they can't use it. However, what is important is that you let them know why they can't use it. Because if not, a student will use it and not tell you. Because we have students that will go out there. I love your example because you're right. You watch them with this eagerness to say they want to learn something, and you're like, okay, but my writing's not that bad. It's fine, but now it's towards the end. It's like you went from here to here. Who wrote this?
My problem now that students have really caught on, is like everybody's writing at a graduate level in the class all the time from the beginning.
That is a good problem.
And I think I have an interesting challenge in that it's cinema appreciation. Yes, there are a couple of certificates that they're required to take this class, but the vast majority of my students, it's a fine arts elective.
Mm-hmm.
So they just need the credit. I mean, sure, they like the class, they like watching movies for college credit, you know, blah, blah, blah. But like, I understand the push and pull, but they're there to get credit.
Mm-hmm.
They're not there to build foundationally, like in your class where they're learning how to use English better. And so, you know, it's such a tension with me. I mean, obviously, I don't want them, you know, creating homework or creating their assignments in AI, but I also don't need to go completely draconian on them in ways that turn it into a writing class.
Right.
So do you have any statements in your?
Yes, yeah, I do. It's just that I would say 2 years ago, clearly had that one semester that came out one thing at the end of the semester, I turned in the next semester,
And that's how.
4 things.
Mm-hmm.
Last year in the fall, maybe another 4, you know, but now it's just like, and in one sense, like, why wouldn't you use this tool to get out of doing work if you can? You know,
Yeah.
it's the temptation is so strong.
You're right.
Because otherwise you have to learn something.
You're absolutely correct. I think if, in this case, it will help. This book, Teaching with AI, A Practical Guide to the New Era of Human Learning by Jose Bowen and Edward Winston, it's actually wonderful.
Is there a book?
It's a book. It's a book. In fact, that's why I put the link in here as well too. You can go to, which is called the American Associations of American Colleges and Universities. They're the ones who promoted it. They actually put on a presentation through AACU to talk about how to use different types of AI. So we actually have a guy, Tim. Forget Tim's last name. If Laura can help me, what's his last name?
Tim Mosel?
Yes.
Also?
Who's coming in to talk about generated AI and how we use it within the curriculum as well too. If you haven't signed up for that, which is February 28th, we do still have some slots left for part-time and some slots left for full-time because it's covered by the institution. But in this, it is a wonderful book because I love the way they talk about not just one institution, they're talking about all institutions and what we're going through because the human error, you're right, but let's not use human, the person that's hidden within us, try to find the easiest way to do something. So we'll just type it into AI and figure it'd be quick.
I mean, in a lot of ways, it's how we run our lives. If I can find a better, faster, easier way to do something, you know, it's just that there's that fine line here between, like, when I was in high school, my computer science teacher always used to say, knowledge isn't knowing everything, it's knowing that the information is out there
Knowing
Mhm.
and how to find it.
Yeah.
And this is tweaking that because it isn't always responding with correct information.
So true.
So, but it's going to get better at that, you know, and this will become standard at a certain point. So it's like, you know, to a certain degree, resistance is futile.
It is true, and that's why
We
some
gotta learn how to use it.
So that it becomes to start building assessments that they can't use it for, you know.
Mhm.
Or in your case, it could be create an infographic about this, you know, with these parts. And could they use it? Maybe, but yeah,
Yeah, it's just, I mean, I'm experimenting with different ways to, you know.
ask ChatGPT for some suggestions. Things you can do to
that is true.
Yeah.
ChatGPT it.
Yeah.
In fact, there's a group of institutions that you can take workshops and get a certificate in how to use AI constructively in your classes. Not Washington, I do apologize. Well, yeah, Washington. Washington University is one of them. Closer to us would be Madison, Wisconsin, University of Madison. They have a certificate program for AI. There's actually another institution in Wisconsin that has another one as well too. Illinois, the closest one will be Illinois State. That would be close to us. That has classes to talk about how to utilize. It's more geared towards college and university level rather than K through 12. Not to say that the K through 12 doesn't use it. However, within the new curriculum for K through 12, it's actually being implemented into their teaching practices based on the institution. We at Triton do have education department, but it's not in there. It's when they go to the 4-year for their junior and senior level as part of their methodology courses. All right, questions, comments?
Thank you.
I get nervous every time.
Very nice job.
Especially when you use examples. I mean, I really did not want to fail the student, but I just like this. It's an online class. I didn't see them per se, and the fact that you're right, it was like, okay, all your discussions were like, here's some mistakes here and there. I'm like, oh, okay, not a problem. I'm not an English teacher. This is not an English class. But then your project went from here. No.
Well,
And then you
it
use
doesn't even actually respond to what the assignment was. It's just something else. That's a pretty clear signal immediately.
It was, but you would think the student would have caught it himself.
That is just, I mean, I find there's a certain percentage of my students, and maybe it's 5 or 10%, but they really don't think in an online asynchronous class that the instructor's actually grading it.
Correct.
They just want to be like, yeah, turn it in. Like,
And you're
they're being lazy, why wouldn't I be lazy? Turn
You're
it in.
absolutely
I
correct.
comment on every, I make mine blog. Mine's asynchronous as well, so we go outside of the LMS, and I comment on every blog.
Yeah.
But there was an instance where the writing was clearly not the same. And the nice part is I had the other blog post to go back and compare it to, and all I did was basically, I think it was worth 10 points. I gave her 1 point for posting, and there was no arguing, there was no fighting, there was no response. She just took it. She moved on through.
Yeah,
I wish I had that when he didn't challenge me on it and just like, yeah, you're right. But because the fact that he sent back and said, no, I did it myself. Okay. That's where the dean said create different 19s. And I was like, these 19 questions, he could not answer any of them. And then Bill, who asked
AI to generate your 19 questions based on this text that was turned in. I wrote that down as like a.
I didn't think of that at the time. I thought of the questions on my own because I went back to the email contract. You said you were doing it on shoes.
That's entirely.
Male shoes. And you said 50. There's only 20 in this paper. Okay, so the number's not right.
So many things wrong with. I mean,
He made it way too easy for you.
Yeah.
His family members and.
No.
I don't know whether that guy is my family related or.
I could not stop laughing at home when I was asking. I was like, okay, I'm going to pick a name, and you tell me the relationship of this person to you. So I'll just use the word Josh, or the name Josh. He's like, I don't remember a Josh in there. There's a Josh on this paper.
How about Dad?
Well, that was the written instructions. If they used a family member, they had to use his or her first name. They couldn't use a title like dad or mom. They had to use that person's first name. Next to in the column, then they will use the relationship in this case. And then the last one, I love Bill who asked the question. It wasn't a business paper. It's all about statistics. Because in my class for Math 102, we talked about how statistics is used and how you violate using types of graphs. And so in his paper, he had to write on, because he had to use a scattered graph and a Venn diagram. How can this being misused? There was an editor who worked for the New York Times, and this was back in the 80s. And I can't remember his name per se. But in the article, he wrote that the New York Times never went back and checked their data. So at the time, people were reading articles and thinking, oh my God, 86% of people have cancer. Oh, that could be me. but they never told where the data came from. So a lot of people were scared. So when Bill asked that question, that's what we talked about in the reading, how charts can mislead individuals. You need to explain this chart. Therefore, it wasn't a Venn diagram. He gave me a bar chart. And then it wasn't a scatter graph, it was a circle graph. And I was like, wait a minute, I didn't ask for percentages, I asked for the relationship. So, and that's what I'm saying. We talked about it in the reading on the different types of charts that you can use and how to use them. We talked about the violations of statistics. We talked about mean. It's basic statistics. So it wasn't like a business class, it's a math class. And showing how it's used in the real world. But nevertheless, when my dean and I sat, I was like, I don't know what to do with this. She's like, what do you mean?
You guys working as a greeter at Walmart, no.
Well, it's funny because he's not here anymore. It's funny because I failed him for the project. I couldn't fail him for the class. I failed him for the project. So the highest he could have got was a C. He can't because the project was 30% of the grade, so he couldn't get any higher than a C. For the class, he stated that in his argument that he took statistics 2 semesters ago with one of my colleagues. I said, fantastic. I said, so can you explain X, Y, and Z term that was not in your book?
That you used in your paper.
Correct. AI did, but he didn't because he couldn't explain it. And I'm thinking, but you just said you took statistics, so you should be able to explain these 3 words that you put in your paper. So that's why I said, the dean said, make up 19 points that you can challenge him on. So I know statistics. I teach statistics. But those 3 words, I'm like, that's not in this book because that's not part of this class. This is not elementary statistics. This is not economic statistics. This is just regular statistics in the sense of it's basic. It's nothing supposed to be higher. But yet, here's a graduate level statistics paper, and you can't even tell me what it is. But you wrote it. Yeah, that was the fun part about it. The fun part. Oh.
What was the example?
The presentation, go back here, all the way back, is creating AI standards and guiding principles for students. It's used for your syllabus.